The Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. I'm absolutely over the moon to have Sheila Hogan with me today. She is the CEO and founder of Biscuit Tin. Hello, Sheila. How are you?
Hello, Rebecca. I'm fabulous, thank you.
You are
Beautiful
fabulous.
sunshine out there.
I know. And we live in Scotland, so let's make the most of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Now, Biscuit Tin, first of all, what a great name for a business. And second of all, what do you do?
So, we are a digital secure vault that holds all your life information from accounts to documents to wishes to memories all in one place that's then released to those you nominate when you die. And it's all born from my personal experience of having to close down the lives of my parents, armed with a physical biscuit tin full of their old insurance policies and papers and photographs, etc., and finding out that the whole thing's just broken and we need to change how we do it.
Yeah. So out of tragedy comes something that's quite hopeful. Now, this is a relatively recent business. How many years have you been going?
Well, I first came up with the idea and registered the company back in 2016. But to be fair, I didn't really do anything with it for a few years because I didn't have the money to get it off the ground. I finally came of the ripe old age of 55 in 2019 and got decided that I wanted to use my tax-free cash to get this off the ground because I felt like I couldn't go to my deathbed without doing everything I could to get this idea, off the ground. So in 2019, I decided that's what I was going to do. And in 2020, just as lockdown started, we launched our MVP version. So I think what we can safely say is that we kind of launched a product in 2020. We didn't really start trading until 2021. And I didn't really employ anyone until we got our first round of investment last year in 2022. So yeah, it's been a journey so far, and we're a long way from the end. So yeah.
Yeah. So most people with that tax-free lump sum from their pension at 55 buy a camper van.
I know a friend of mine that's actually done that,
Yeah,
so that's cool. You said
that's
it.
basically what they do. So you went, no, I'm going to start a tech business. Now, had you worked in tech before?
Yeah.
Right.
So I'd always been in tech, really. I mean, I left school at 16. I was just kind of like, after money, to be fair.
Right.
I wanted to do lots of things. So yeah, I left school at 16 and went straight into, quite luckily, even back then, right, so it's over 40 years ago, I realized that tech was a thing of the future.
Yeah.
And, I needed to get into it. I didn't quite know as what, but anyway, I ended up going to work for Bradford Council at the time. They had it was like an apprentice, I suppose, apprenticeship in computing. It was called a junior computer officer, and you went around all the different departments, and it took some tests, etc. And eventually, after going to Huddersfield, what is uni was Poly back then, but I did computer science there. And eventually I became a computer programmer back then.
Wow.
So yeah, been through lots of kind of like, journeys throughout that career, but latterly specialized in strategy and as a business architect, designing the way businesses need to operate to actually, make the most of technology and digital transformation.
I'm really curious to know how you became aware that tech was a thing, because I'm 52, so we're broadly similar age, and I just wasn't aware of tech. It wasn't even on my radar. What brought it onto your radar?
I think I mean, you're asking me something now, Rebecca, seriously. The thing that came into my head, right, is a careers teacher that we had. I was quite good at maths. In fact, it was quite but we're only O level kind of maths. I didn't
Yeah.
actually, do A levels or anything, but I quite enjoyed mathematics side of things. And the career teacher that we had, I believe, right, this is what I'm kind of like, this is what's coming to my head, whether it's actually true or not, I don't know, because the memories, but I've not been asked that before. So yeah, I think it was her that
Right.
actually started to talk about, there's these, what about computing, and moving into that space. So I think it was her, to be honest.
Right. That's really interesting. I'm going a bit deeper here, Sheila, and stop me if you don't want to go any
Right.
further. Were you at a mixed school or were you a single sex school at that time?
I was at a single sex school, and yeah, Brighouse Girls Grammar School
Right.
I went to, yeah. And you know what? It was incredible.
Yeah.
It really was. And my peer group, from those times, I would say we have all turned out to be, really quite, confident,
Mm.
driven women,
Yeah.
independent kind of like women. And I think that is all to do with the kind of like the same sex kind of like schooling that we had, and
Yeah.
the actual teachers, in there as well, instilling it in you basically that you can do anything, right? You can do anything you want to do, even back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was incredible. And I even looked for my daughter to go to a same-sex school because I just felt like it was, just so incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, same-sex school, an all-girls school, and I absolutely loved it. And we didn't have any distractions,
No.
in school,
Yeah.
you know, from the male
Yeah.
um, male teenagers.
Yeah.
So yeah, and we had such a good time. Seriously,
Yeah.
we just had, because we just laughed a lot, and did silly things a lot, but at the same time we were quite industrious too.
Yeah. I went to a single sex grammar school as well. I was at school, first Berry Grammar and then Altrincham Grammar. And for years and years and years and years, I was very much anti single sex schools.
Right.
But having seen my three kids go through the mixed education system, I think I've changed my mind.
Mm.
And I think, particularly for my girls, I think they would have benefited from an all girls environment. I don't know about my boy, not sure about him. He actually did better in a mixed environment, but definitely the girls would have fared better in a single sex environment, I think. We weren't on to talk about this, but that was just a side note that
Yeah.
just occurred to me. And I wondered where that original spark came from, because certainly our all girls school was very much, well, you do whatever you want, and all the
No
science
question. No
teachers were
question.
female.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, definitely. I just think it really does instill that, it's like it threw you like a stick of rock, isn't it?
yeah,
Of course I can
yeah,
do this. Why wouldn't I be able to?
yeah.
And I think also the actual bonding
Mm.
that you get with your female friends at that time. We kind of like didn't meet up for a long time, but in our early 40s, our class started to get together. There'd been friends reunited out there. Facebook was coming up, and one of the ladies took it upon herself to try and connect as many people from our class as possible. And now we've progressed to quarterly lunches plus an annual weekend away, and we've
Get
been
you.
doing that. We've been doing that since our early 50s. So, and it's our 60th year this year, and there's normally about between 10 and 15 of us that all get together.
That's
And so it is just great, and it's like going back to when you were 16 again. Seriously, straight away. So
brilliant.
yeah, the bonding is incredible as well. The depth of those kind of relationships, I think, were really quite strong as well.
Yeah, fascinating. Right, let's get back to the present day and Biscuit Tin.
Hmm.
So, a couple of things. One, you've talked about raising investment, and I want to talk about your experience of that. But also, you've been on Dragon's Den, and we cannot have a podcast with you, Sheila, without talking about Dragon's Den. Because the reason you're on my podcast is because I heard you talk about it at a networking event run by the wonderful Belinda. We do Scotland, and you made me laugh about Dragon's Den and your whole experience. Talk us through how that came about.
Well, the whole journey was a year long, right? From the
Right.
time that because they approached me, they'd seen me speak. I think they'd seen me
Ah,
pitch at the
right.
Accelerate Her Awards
Okay.
the year before, I believe. And in February 21, the actual assistant producer, a researcher, contacted me to say, would I be interested? I'm looking for investment for my business, and would I be interested in applying for Dragon's Den? And I'm kind of like of the mind that, that when opportunities arise, you just need to kind of go with it, because,
Yeah.
you never know when it's where it's going to lead. So I was very kind of like, yeah, sure. At the same time as that, I had actually appointed an advisory board for the business, and the chair of that advisory board said to me, "Don't do it. Don't do Dragon's
Okay.
Den." He'd had a bad experience of another business that he'd been involved in, that he knew about, had a really adverse experience.
Right.
Well, their business had adverse impact from the experience. Let's put it that way. And
Okay.
he said, "You're taking a huge risk, right, in doing this." And I was like, "Oh my God, how can I actually have just put on board a new chair of an advisory board and then just ignore his advice, because I've got to do this. I've got to follow this through, right? I cannot, because I might not even get through anyway. However,
Yeah.
right, this is about putting Biscuit Tin out there, raising awareness of it, raising awareness of the concept, raising awareness of the problem. So I cannot, not do this." So I just didn't say anything about it for a while, until I'd got through a number of the different stage gates, and they are plenty, right? You never know whether you're going to get through to the next stage at every step of the way. But eventually, it was the end of June, actually, in 21. So there's about 6 months of kind of due diligence and various different stage gates. And then I got the phone call to say that I had a filming date in July. And it was exactly 3 weeks to the day, from the
Right.
point that they called me to the point where of the filming date.
Crikey.
So it was a pretty intense 3 weeks. I was kind of like, "Oh my goodness, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. I need to put on the performance of a lifetime." And I decided that, and through a friend of mine, I was recommended to go for acting lessons
Okay.
with a wonderful lady based up in Dundee, who runs a company called the Acting Lab. And I had two lessons a week for those 3 weeks, and my journey on that was just absolutely incredible. And I would recommend anyone who has to present their business or pitch or do any kind of presentations in their career, I would certainly recommend going for acting lessons, because it's just a different angle on creating a performance as opposed to a presentation. So
Okay.
so yeah, it was just fabulous.
And RADA didn't call you then?
Oh dear. In terms of, I mean, these are the funny bits, I imagine, Rebecca, that you're kind of alluding to. But I mean, so Elaine, the acting coach lady, actually said to me, on the first lesson, "How do you feel when you're anxious and nervous and scared?"
Right.
And I thought about it a minute, and then thought, "Oh my goodness, yeah, I feel all kind of like jittery in my tummy, and my tummy's kind of like jumping around." And so she's right, hold that thought, And how do you feel when you are excited, really excited about something? And I'm like, oh God, it's the same physical feeling, right?
Mhm.
Yes, because when I'm excited, my tummy's all jittery and jumpy. It's the same thing. She says, well, you will get those physical feelings on the day of the Dragon's Den. There's no doubt about it. But what you have to do is channel the excitement, channel the mindset into you are excited. You're not scared.
Mhm.
You're not anxious, right? This is the, you know, opportunity of a lifetime. You are very, very excited. And that is exactly what I did on the day. And I'm sure those people thought I was some kind of nutcase. The production team, because they kept asking me, you know, they're quite sensitive to, you know, the reality TV impact on people, you know, now, and they're asking you all the time, how are you feeling, and
Right.
things. And they kept asking me, and I kept saying, I am so excited. I am so very excited. And, you know, I felt a bit like Will Ferrell off Elf, you know, I know Santa, I know him kind of thing. And they must have thought I was some kind of, you know, weird lady that was just, you know, this is not a normal reaction. But that's exactly what I did. I was just very excited, you know, on the
Brilliant.
day.
Brilliant.
And she's the other thing she said to me, which is again is a kind of like one of the kind of funny things of the story, I suppose, is, you know, what are you worried about on the day when you walk into that den? And I said, I said, sometimes, you know, my voice goes all croaky,
Okay.
you know, if I'm presenting or whatever. So she says, well, that's adrenaline. She says, and the adrenaline is rushing to the plate to your weakest point. And if you're trying to speak, then that's the adrenaline rushing to your voice.
Okay.
So she said, what you have to do is you have to dissipate that adrenaline to elsewhere in your body. And she says, a really good way to do that is, she says, as you walk into the den, you get your position and then immediately clench your bum cheeks. She says, and what that will do is it will bring the adrenaline away from your voice and into your bottom, right? And she says, you don't have to do it for the whole performance. It's just when you're starting to dissipate that adrenaline rush into your voice box. And so if anybody's seen that episode of Dragon's Den, you'll know exactly what I'm doing when I first stand on that cross in Dragon's Den, because
You-
that's you know, that's what I did, and
you're
it seemed to
clenching.
work.
I will never be able to watch that replay in the same way ever again. Sheila clenching butt cheeks
Yeah.
on the Dragon's Den. Right. Okay. Good advice, though. Really good advice.
Oh
Right.
yeah.
Did you get investment?
No, no. And to be fair, I mean, obviously that's what you have to be going on the show for, right?
Yeah.
But it was good that I didn't, because in at the same time, in parallel to going on Dragon's Den, I was trying to, you know, raise what I call the real investment round.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I'd have gone, the terms and conditions of and the valuations that you know, the dragons put on things are just not great, and it would have
Yeah.
kind of like scuppered our real investment round had
Yeah.
I taken, you know, any of the money. But it did what I wanted it to do. It put
Mm.
you know, it raised awareness of Biscuit Tin. It put us on the map, and not just on the UK map, right? I mean, since then, I mean, you know, the program goes out internationally. You know, we've had
Yeah.
interest from the US, South Africa, Dubai,
Oh,
you know, Europe. You know, we've had, you know, interest, you know, from all over the world. I
very
would say
good.
on the back of actually going out there. So from a PR perspective and a marketing perspective, it was, you know, extremely successful.
Brilliant. Oh, good. Good. I'm pleased. So, are you still friends with your chair who told you not to go?
Yes,
Good.
yes,
That's all right
yes,
then.
yeah, yeah.
I was listening to a podcast this morning with Sam Altman, the guy who's the CEO of ChatGPT, and he said the best advice he could give to anybody is not to listen to anybody's advice.
Wow, that's
Yeah,
profound.
yeah, isn't it? He said because over the years, he's listened to some people's advice and it's been wrong. He said, actually, what I've learned is you need to go with what you feel is right. That's right for you at that point in time. While advice could be really well intentioned, obviously, it's based on circumstances that were uniquely different to whatever you're deciding at that point in time. And I thought, that's actually superb advice. And the interviewer said, what advice would you give to other people? And he went, I wouldn't. I purposefully don't give advice anymore. He said, I used to, because people used to ask me. He said, but I just don't anymore. I think that's really good advice, actually. I think that's great. Right. Okay. So
That's cool. That's really interesting. Yeah. And
it is,
I
isn't
think
it?
I think he's right.
Yeah.
I think you know that you have to trust your own gut and your own instincts and go with, like you say, what he says, go with what feels right for you. I think that's definitely true.
Yeah. Yeah. Without a shadow of a doubt. So you've raised investment, which is great. What did that allow you to get the first employee, and who was the first employee? What was their role?
Yeah. So we got the first round of investment in the same week that Dragon's Den aired. So that was really quite fortunate, to be
Yeah.
fair,
Yeah.
that we had a good news story, coming out of it. We raised, 3 times what I'd asked for on Dragon's Den,
Brilliant.
and it was really good. And that was our first kind of pre-seed SEIS round.
Brilliant.
And out of that, the aim of that was to bring the tech in house. The overall aim was bring the tech in house. There's much more credence, out there, and the journey is. I mean, I learn every single day on this journey, that I'm on. As much as I'd been in tech, for on a consultancy basis for many years in bigger financial kind of like institutions kind of thing. Doing a startup is a very different journey, and actually getting involved in the equity, selling equity of your business. I'd never actually, although I'd run many businesses over the years, I'd never had one where I'd needed to actually sell a share of my business
Right.
to actually raise money. So all of that journey is just, complete and learning, like I say, every single day. But for that first round, the key thing was bring the tech in house,
Okay.
because that is, having your own in house tech team is a much bigger kind of value
Hmm.
than having your tech out with an agency. And so that is what we did. I mean, the key kind of recruit from that was our VP of engineering, Kenny. So he came on board. I also, at the same time, recruited my daughter was looking for, another career. I was, after Dragon's Den, I was kind of inundated. I mean, there was just me in the company at the time, and I was just inundated with, requests for, either partnerships or interest in investing, etc. And she was looking for another role, so I took her on as like an assistant to start
Right.
with, to deal with the influx of engagement from people on the back of Dragon's Den. And then we, because we needed to build the product team and the tech team out, um, she went on the Code Clan course.
Ah, brilliant.
So yeah, she was on that for about 6-7 months,
Right.
and now she's our junior developer under
Great.
the kind of safe wings of Kenny, our VP of engineering. So the big thing was about bringing that tech in house, and
Hmm.
actually also moving forward in terms of traction on partnerships, because our route to market is via partnerships. With we don't have, as an early startup, although it is really a direct to consumer product, Biscuit Tin. We don't have a direct to consumer budget. I mean, to actually, I would need a few million. I mean, the 12-minute section that I got on primetime BBC One, that would have cost me millions had I
Yeah.
had that. Well, I wouldn't have been able to do it on BBC One, would I? But
No.
in terms of advertising, that would have cost millions. And to do kind of campaigns like that, it does cost a lot of money. So our initial route to market is via partnerships who have established relationships with our kind of customer demographic, and that offer what we would call life event propositions. So,
Yeah.
when you get a mortgage, you have to think about what's going to happen when you die, life insurance,
Yeah.
when you do a will, you know, pensions, you have to think about, what's going to happen to it. So, any of those, when you have children, you should be thinking about what's going to happen if something happened to me, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
So there's all these life events where, we really should be thinking about it and planning ahead. So those are our kind of target partnership people, banks, insurance companies, lawyers, estate planners, financial advisors, those kind of things.
Yeah. And they're not really known for their swift decision making.
No, no, no. We've got a few that we've been talking to for some time. I mean, we've already got Scottish Building Society on board quite early on,
Brilliant. Brilliant.
which is brilliant. And we've got Age Partnership, who are the UK's #1 equity release provider. So
Great.
we've got a couple of decent ones already, and yeah, we progress a number of others, which I'm hoping will come to actual fruition after that long lead time during the summer and by quarter 3.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. Whilst we've been talking, I've got a couple of people I'll put you in touch with as well who've had a career in that equity release space. I know because after hearing you talk, I went and got my will done. Me and my husband got our wills done. We've got our powers of attorney done
Oh,
now. So
oh God, do you know what? That warms my heart, Rebecca. Seriously, it does. That
yeah,
I've inspired somebody to get organised and,
yeah.
and stuff. Oh, thank you. Thanks,
No,
thanks for
that's a
sharing that.
pleasure. It's again, it was one of those things we've been meaning to do for years. And after seeing you talk, I thought, right, that's it. I'm just making the call, booking the appointment, getting it done. And it's done now. And I think what's really interesting is once it's done, you just then forget about it until there's a material change. But, you just forget about it. And actually, it gives you so much peace of mind.
Yeah,
It's like,
it's
it's
not a
a
monkey sat on your
major,
shoulder anymore. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, major box ticked on your life to-do list. I've
yeah,
done that now. I don't have to think about it. No, it's really, really good. And it's good because I've got 3 kids as well. It's like, look, you'll be fine. If we're not here, everything's sorted. Um, yeah. So thank you very much for that.
no, you're welcome. And what about a biscuit tin?
I am, after this call, I'm registering on Biscuit Tin
Fantastic.
because we've now got all the documents, so I can now put them on Biscuit Tin and I can, go through the process and make sure that the right people will have access to that, definitely. Because I believe, am I right in thinking as well, you can put all like your social media passwords on there as well? Have I
You
picked
can.
up that?
You can put
Right,
whatever you like in your biscuit tin,
right.
right? So we guide you through. I mean, just intuitively, we've kind of structured biscuit tin into certain kind of like components which help you think about all the different aspects of your life that you would need to share. And there's a social media section. There's also a kind of like digital subscription section, things like Netflix and things like that. There's utilities section, those. There's your kind of vehicles, there's your personal belongings like nice ornaments and stuff.
Yeah,
There's a memories section at the moment which we're really excited about our next big feature launch, which is coming in quarter 3.
right,
Is not quite sure whether we're going to call it this or not when we actually put it in the proposition, but the project's called Precious Thoughts and Memories,
right.
and we've worked with a few people at end of life.
Okay.
Johnny Irwin being one of them, who we've worked with quite recently, the presenter from A Place in the Sun, who is very sadly got
Oh,
terminal lung
yes.
cancer, and
Yeah.
3 young boys. So we've worked with him, and we've also worked with a fabulous lady called Paula, who has got terminal bowel cancer, and also a digital inheritance expert, um, to pull together, right, what is it, that people need from a personal level
Mm,
to inherit. So yes, there's all the practical stuff, but the other thing that kind of I realized when mum and dad had gone was, oh my goodness, they've taken this whole history of their lives with them, and because it's not recorded, right, I can remember snippets, but no way enough of richness about their life that I could hand down the generations. And that's another kind of mission for us. So there's the practical side of things and being able to close down all the threads quite neatly and things, but then there's the personal side, and what kind of rich digital legacy can you
mm,
leave about you and your life to hand down to the generations, basically. And that's what this kind of like new feature is all about, um, allowing you to create a digital biography of your life,
yeah.
and add things about you personally
Because
to that.
all our photographs now are in the cloud.
Mm, yeah,
You
yeah,
know, so once upon a time, because I've got my grandfather's photos from when he was in the war. But now, babies were born in the digital age, and all their photos are just in the cloud,
yeah,
and whole families. So yeah, you're right. It's so important to inherit that digital part of your life and maintain it for the next generations to come. Otherwise, we'll lose it, won't we?
yeah. We'll lose all of it. I mean, what we're
Yeah,
trying to do with Biscuit Tin, it's very different to the kind of like the in life social media platforms that we use, like Facebook, like Instagram, like all those other kind of propositions. We are specifically designed for inheritance, as
yeah,
opposed to you know the social media platforms like Facebook. It's a kind of like, it can be a fake life or whatever. So yes, kind of hand that down. But what we're trying to do with Biscuit Tin is a very personal account that is kind of like behind the public wall, and is just for you to share with your nearest and dearest, basically.
yeah. Lovely, lovely. Oh, what a lovely concept. Right. If Biscuit Tin had a personality or a character, how would you describe it, Sheila?
Oh my goodness.
This is my last question. You're
Oh,
okay.
you've really put me on the spot. Yeah, there. How would I describe it?
Yeah,
Oh, a personality. I think Biscuit Tin is very. I'll speak about the characteristics, and then hopefully something will come to mind about a character or something. I think Biscuit Tin is very comforting
yeah,
and
yeah,
very kind of trustworthy, and a loyal kind of friend to have, to hold all your personal information, and it can hold everything, right? There's no limits to what you can put in there, or the type of things you can put in there, etc. So
yeah. Lovely.
in terms of a character, but those are the characteristics that I
Okay.
believe Biscuit Tin's got. Is very trustworthy, dependable, and comforting to know that you're in safe hands
Yeah.
with a Biscuit Tin, as a person or a character, and someone who you can go to look after things for you.
Do you know where my brain went, Sheila? It went
Yeah,
to my nana, and then where it went to was the matriarch in an elephant community or a whale community, where the matriarch holds all the information and all the history. and looks after everybody and makes sure everybody is fed and watered, and they know all the paths to the watering holes at different times of year, and they hold the whole history of the generations. That's what comes to mind, like a matriarchal
Well, that's weird you should say that, because when you first asked me the question, elephant came into my head immediately, but I didn't make the connection as to why, which is what you've just done for me, Rebecca, right? That is really kind of like, that's cool. Yes, definitely. Definitely. The old matriarch elephant.
Yeah.
Yes.
Brilliant. Amazing. Great place to finish. That is, Sheila. Thank you so much. I'm so excited. Good luck with this round of investment.
Thank you so much.
I'm going off to sign on now and get all my details on there and get my life sorted, which is fantastic. And thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for asking me, Rebecca. I've had a great time. Thank you.
The Entrepreneurial Journey Podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass.